So next up is going to be Kevin Cody talking about lesser-known application vulnerabilities. Yes, I'm going to read. Kevin is an application security consultant with experience working in several Fortune 500 companies. You get to choose which ones they are.
Whatever ones you want.
Whichever ones you want them to be. Yes, he's worked there. So we'll turn it over to Kevin now. I think that's probably a good start, right? All right, Kevin, enjoy yourself.
Thank you. You hear me? We're good?
Good.
All right. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about some lesser-known application vulnerabilities. I have 40 minutes. I might slide through some things pretty quickly here. Hopefully leave some time for questions at the end. But I got to start off with the obligatory polling question because it's late in the afternoon and everyone's hopefully had a few drinks by now. So just so I can get a feel for the crowd, how many folks in here are pen testers, vuln analysts, security practitioners of some sort? So that's about half. That's good. That's good. Anyone doing bug bounties on the side? Be part of that same group, or you're just trying to dive into bug bounties? Not very many. Okay. Anyone developers? No. Awesome. Perfect. Great. Any auditors, compliance? Probably not. Yeah, good. Good. Great. And anyone just like, hey, application security is cool. I'm going to listen to this dude. Woo! Yeah. Awesome. All right. So this is me. I'm Kevin Cody at Kev Cody on Twitter. Senior application security consultant for Invisium. Thank you for giving me the day off today so that I can make up my hours on the weekend. It's all good. I'm a bit of a vulnerability stumble-uponer. If you've worked with anyone who I've worked with or happen to have been in the same place that I have, I kind of fall ass first into things sometimes and make some trouble for people, usually myself. But also, I'm a mainframe enthusiast. Any mainframers out there? Oh, like 3 people. That's awesome. Yeah, ZOS for life. I'm also a husband, dad, lock picker back there, DIY via YouTube, fisherman, ADD, whatever takes me to the moment. So that's me. And we're going to be talking about AppSec in 2017. Looks a lot like this. Yeah, that's about right. So for real, what are we talking about in 2017? What's making the headlines and what's keeping us busy? Bug bounties. So we're like 3 people here doing bug bounties, at least that you wanted to raise their hand. But bug bounties are huge right now. We'll get into more of that here in a moment. We're now up to 7 digits on CVEs because we can't stop finding vulnerabilities, and we needed to make it that longer. We're experiencing 90s and 2000s nostalgia every day. We're finding the same bugs reinvented in different and curious circumstances. Everything's connected. This isn't a surprise to anyone. My fridge is talking to my Nest Cam. My Nest Cam is talking to my car. When I get home, Android Auto tells my car to turn on the lights, all that good stuff. Whatever the crypto ransom potato blockchain currency of the day, we're having. So what does that really mean for us? That means a lot of work. Anyone out there in AppSec who is looking for additional work, because I can give you some names of folks that are hiring. Great reading material. How many folks out there are going through the open disclosures, reading through some of the great material out there? Anyone know Tavis Ormandy? Subscribe to his Twitter blog, have like a Tavis Ormandy alarm on the side of your wall. When he tweets, the bells ring, you know, like, oh shit, what's going on? His disclosures are awesome. If you're not reading Tavis Ormandy's Project Zero blogs and releases, you should be. Every time he releases something, I'm like, oh, I got to check for that next assessment because that was unbelievable. Code for days. If you happen to be in security and you care about AppSec, there is never-ending GitHub repos out there that you could stay busy for the rest of your life. There's some drama out there if you are in the app security world. I won't point fingers or name names, but InfoSec drama, yeah. And at the end of the day, there's a requirement to stay up to date. Things are evolving. A lot of our platforms are kind of rehash the same thing, just rehash in a different way. However, the vulnerabilities are new, intriguing, interesting, and staying up to date on those vulns is, again, in itself a full-time job. So without further ado, I'm going to go through some bugs that we should be looking at in our day-to-day lives. If you are not familiar with something, if you have questions, I want this to be interactive, raise your hand. Happy to get some questions answered up front. You don't have to wait till the end. Okay, so who in here is familiar with the OWASP Top 10? That's over half. Fantastic. I like to talk about the drama-free 2013 version, but that's me. So this is the OWASP Top 10. If you're not familiar with it, it's the top 10 web application security vulnerabilities that in some Ouija board magic way were created into this top 10 list. But they're good stuff, right? So we have injection. This covers huge majority of different type of injection vulnerabilities that weren't broken out into their own categories. We have broken authentication and session management. That's a huge one. Cross-site scripting. Insecure direct object reference. Anyone love those? Those are my favorite. You see an integer, you're like, hey, I wonder what happens if I incremented that by 1. Okay, there's someone else's bank account. Security misconfig, that's huge. I read a study a few weeks ago, and I'm not trying to quote anyone or put someone on the spot, but whoever this group or facility was that put this together actually took and mapped the Verizon DVIR breaches back to the OWASP Top 10 to try to figure out like, what was the most prevalent thing. Because I'm sitting here telling you that you should be worried about injection. I'm sitting here telling you you should be worried about cross-site scripting. But when was the last time cross-site scripting led to a big breach in any major way? Right? We know there's defects out there. We know there's crazy things you can do when you're running arbitrary code in the browser on someone's machine. But at the end of the day, where's the breach? What does that map out to? And whatever magic formula this person used, and again, not trying to degrade them, but they said that security misconfiguration was the #1 of the OWASP Top 10 that led to the most breaches. And you know what? I tend to agree with that. We're going to cover a little bit of that here today. You can look at the rest of this stuff. All right, so to jump right in here, anyone heard of server-side request forgery? 1, 2 hands, great. We're going to talk about it. So server-side request forgery, this is kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's not really like cross-site request forgery, but you're kind of making someone do something that they didn't really want to do. So we can call it similar to cross-site request forgery. But basically, attackers use server-side request forgery to probe internal ports, admin consoles, get around IP whitelisting, access control lists. Yeah, this sounds fun. I want to sign up for that, right? So what are we talking about here? Full disclosure, I took this image from NetSparker. I did not create this, but they had an awesome image, and I'm using it. So if I am Mr. Attacker or user, and I'm interacting with your web server up here, there is a class of vulnerabilities in which I can utilize your server to do my bidding and bypass me altogether. And that's called server-side request forgery. So what does that mean? Or what does that look like? And then I'll come back to what it means. So this is what it looks like. Imagine this is an HTTP request. You have GET, say B-Sides Pittsburgh is the domain, and you're trying to get their schedule. And because they didn't want to cache it, or they want to get the most up to date, or they want to increase their S3 bill, B-Sides Pittsburgh hosts their S3 or their schedule out on S3, and it's pointed to by this URL frame. All right. But instead of making you go out and fetch that, like a lot of client-side stuff, they decide they're going to pull that down for whatever reason. Maybe they have API keys that are locked away and they don't want you to see them, what have you. But this is user controllable data, right? So what if I changed from B-Sides Pittsburgh 2017 to, oh, I don't know, S3 super secret password manager, all right? And now what if you, as an organization, IP whitelisted that super secret password manager function to only come from your internal servers? But now I'm controlling requests that are actually originating from your server out to S3. Well, now I just bypassed your IP whitelisting. Now you might be thinking to yourself, okay, but how is this going to manifest itself back to the user? So that's where it becomes a little tricky. Some of it may be blind. You might have to rely on, say, how long the request took and start using some Boolean logic or what have you. But at the end of the day, you are supplying an end user the ability to make requests to arbitrary resources that's fully controllable from the user side, but is originating from your server. There's a different version of this, which some of you may be more familiar with. It's XML external entity injection. XXE is pretty simple. Basically, you have these DTD declarations at the top of your XML, and basically what you can do if your XML parser supports it and all of that good stuff, you can actually declare an external entity. So right here you can see HTTPS, bsidepittsburgh.com, and what have you. And then basically this payload here, XXE, is inserted into the body of the XML. When that's read, this is declared up here in the header. It reads from system and says, oh, I'm supposed to pull this dynamically from this, this external site, so it reaches out, right? So this is very, very similar to this previous example, except for we've known about this for a while, XML, XXE, a lot of the parsers and the server-side stuff is patched out of the box to protect against this. But at the end of the day, it's the same vulnerability. Basically, you are utilizing the internal system or the idea of dynamically pulling down content on demand that's originating from the server side and using it to your advantage. So when we talk about server-side request forgery, the first thing we want to look at is how do we identify it? What does this look like? How can we protect ourselves? So the easiest and most thorough way to do this is via source code analysis, because all of our source code repos are light, easy to review, and don't have millions of lines of code, so we can just easily point at that and say, hey, we're dynamically pulling that page that's coming from user controllable data, right? Right, okay. Yeah, so source code analysis can find this. I don't know any of the out-of-the-box scanners, check marks, Web Inspect, or Fortify, whatever it is, that does this out of the box that will actually point to this and say, hey, other than there's some type of tainted source, this is user controllable data. I don't know anyone that will actually flag it as SSRF, but I'm sure it can be trained and I'm sure it can do it. But most likely, you're going to be seeing this vulnerability show up at runtime via human interaction, right? Pen testers, vuln analysts, you're actually going to see that parameter, put that into context, try it out, throw out a URL to see if you can resolve to it from an external IP, or I'm sorry, if it resolves from the server's IP, or an out-of-bounds agent. So anyone here use Burp Collaborator? A couple people. So Burp Collaborator is basically an instance of Burp Suite, the web application proxy, that's installed on a server somewhere that's exposed to the internet. And what happens is, as you are utilizing Burp to do your scanning, your active scanning, it'll actually generate like DNS requests and pings and all kinds of fun payloads that are looking to reach back out to this collaborator server. So if it sees calls that are coming from a URL that was created with some type of crazy GUID, it can then map those back to the payload in which it originated from via Burp. But again, you have to have that set up. It's not something that comes out of the box, and it requires a little bit of work. At the end of the day, to remediate this is pretty straightforward. When we talk about this in context of other OWASP top 10 vulns, you never trust user input. We always say that. Sanitize, don't allow user input. Don't expose server-side calls. So at the end of the day, if you want to reach out to pull down dynamic content, don't put it as a parameter in a post or query string or whatever. Just do that on some type of back-end mapped function, right? So you do the query, but you don't allow that to be exposed from the outside. And since I happen to mention it, the XML parsers obviously disable DTD document type declarations to protect yourself against XML XXE. All right, everyone still with me? Okay. The next one, anti-automation. This one sounds pretty straightforward, simple, we've heard it a million times. It's very rare that I get done with an assessment where I work and don't mark some type of anti-automation. But I'm going to put it in some different contexts today. I want to talk about three very specific things: SMS replay and abuse, out-of-bound authenticator attacks, and API abuse. Okay, I know it's probably a little grainy, a little hard to see. Does anyone know what this is? This little logo, it's a circle with 4 dots in it. It's pricing for an external service. The #1 SMS service out there. We've all heard of it. Twilio? Anyone? Oh, no, okay. Okay, one person, great. So this is a framework that basically you can utilize, a commercial framework. They will send SMS messages on your service's behalf, right? So think of some of the big players out there who send out mass messages, either out-of-bounds authentication, short codes, or hey, your balance is low on your account or whatnot. A lot of these are using Twilio's API to do this. You can see here that, for example, short code text messages for high volume clients are half a penny per message, right? So not a whole lot of money, but what happens if we don't protect the forms that utilize this for, say, password resets, or say, send me your latest info on XYZ product via text message? Can anyone imagine what would happen if you're not protecting against automation on these API calls? This bill is going to go through the roof. I've seen this. I've had clients come to us and say, holy shit, we were just completely boned with a huge service charge because someone ran a spider or purposely ran up our bill on this SMS service just to spam users or for kicks and whatnot. And it's all because this SMS, I used to work in telecom, I worked at a big wireless telecom for many, many years. Text messages are expensive. The infrastructure is old. It falls back to not even like 2G or 1G. There's a network before all of that it falls back to. That's why sometimes you can get text messages in areas that you don't even have service. How did this come through? It's because it's an old service, and because it's old, it costs a lot of money to transmit those. So when you add the carrier charges on top of a provider such as Twilio, you get really costly bills. So if I were to run up 300,000 text messages in a matter of seconds against your API, just charging you a half a penny per message, that's a significant bill. And if you're a startup who's using some out-of-bounds functionality, I certainly wouldn't want to pay that bill for simple anti-automation miss in my text message API call. Okay, so another unprotected resource. Does anyone remember or anyone hear about this guy? Facebook last year, he found that when you reset your password, Facebook sends you an out-of-band text message, like, hey, enter this code in, and when you enter that code, we will validate that on the server side, and we'll know if you are indeed the user who sent us the password reset. And people familiar with this? Pretty, well-known concept. So this guy tested this on Facebook, like, hey, can I just brute force this thing? Can I just run through 1 million or whatever the total number of length characters are in this thing? Yeah, and just brute force this thing and see if I can get into someone's account. He tried that on production and it failed. Like, all right, this isn't going to work. But then he tried it on beta because for whatever reason, everything that works in production is the same in beta. You can just log into beta.facebook.com with your production creds and just get in, and you can try out new features or test on it or whatever the hell Facebook allows you to do. But he tried the same thing and brute forced on beta, and here, sure enough, they were missing their API automation controls in beta. So what he did was he just brute forced through this pin code, 154.0.10, 0.11, 0.12, et cetera, and was actually able to basically force reset someone's password reset with complete brute force, right? So they were doing the right thing in their production environment, but unfortunately they failed it in beta, and that led to anti-automation lapse, which caused real-world payout. I think this guy got like 10 or 15 grand for figuring this out. So, hey, who's going to do bug bounties when they leave here? Hopefully, right? There's some silly bugs that have been big money. This is a bear slide. Just general API abuse. So I've done work with some big financials out there, and there's things like stock services or Bloomberg alerts or whatever the heck someone wants to charge you for, and those services actually cost the service provider money. So even though you may see it in your user interface on the website and say, oh look, there's a news feed coming from XYZ source that says that analytics are showing that XYZ stock is going to go up tomorrow. There's a good chance that the provider who's giving you that information is actually paying for those calls from some service on the back end. Well, what if that's exposed via, I don't know, HTML, client-side source, or what have you, and the user is able to invoke those queries directly, or you don't have it throttled properly where it's reaching out every time because you're against cache, and they ring up 10,000 queries against that API, and now again, you're footing the bill for someone else being silly and trying to query a non-public API a bunch of times, and your key is being used, right? So something to be cognizant of. I didn't have a really good example to show something that's been in the wild, most likely because this wouldn't be really seen by the end user. This is something that when the service provider sees their bill, they're like, whoa, where did this come from? Why are we all of a sudden seeing $10,000 from Bloomberg's XYZ API? And the end user had no idea if they even caused that, or if they did, they were pretty knowledgeable. So anti-automation in general, again, identification, you're really going to need to look at this through source code analysis. I don't know, again, of any scanner out there that's looking for anti-automation fallacies in your code. So if you do, talk to me after this, and I can add it to my little list of none right now. But that's going to be your place to look for it. So when you're looking through your code, if you're having third-party reviews, definitely look for areas that would be prone to abuse, services that you pay money for, services that you're relying on security via out-of-band communication, or services that rely on third parties. Make sure that you're protecting those against anti-automation if they're triggered by a user-generated event. And of course, manual penetration testing. This is, again, something you're going to find if you're having a pen test vol analysis, something of that sort. Humans are just better at finding these sort of things if they can see clearly from A to Z. Remediation, rate limiting, right? So if you have all of a sudden a surge from a certain user cookie or what, server-side session that is querying some type of service that costs you money, and it seems out of normal behavior or it's above a certain threshold, limit that. Say, send one every 5 seconds or 10 seconds. The user might all of a sudden say, hey, things are a little bit slow. But from a cost perspective, that's going to be a huge, huge gain from your side if they are legitimately trying to abuse it. CAPTCHA where applicable, or reCAPTCHA. Anyone see the new reCAPTCHA? I'm not a robot. You just click the click and you're done. Does anyone know that there's some CMU folks in here, so this might be obvious, but there's a new reCAPTCHA that has no interaction at all. You probably don't know that because you don't see it. It's actually off the page, either via CSS or hidden in an iframe somewhere. And how that works is it's just Google's reputation of you. So if you ever are like, hey, this should be protected. There used to be a CAPTCHA here. Someone should be monitoring this because I can brute force this thing. Go into incognito mode or in private mode in Firefox and see if you happen to see a CAPTCHA, or see if your usual tick box for I'm not a robot turns into a click all the cat pictures or find all the signs so that Google can outsource their analytics to you, right? Because what Google is doing is they have all these first-party cookies on you that they're referencing to know, hey, this guy, this is what he does, right? He goes to Google a lot. He goes to Gmail. We already have all these cookies. We already have all these analytics. We know he's not a robot. But if you write that into a curl script, those cookies aren't going to go on in your curl script. So all of a sudden now that curl script is being throttled by that CAPTCHA where your users are either clicking a checkbox or not even having to do anything at all, right? So the days of look at this fuzzy picture, bringing your kid to look at the fuzzy picture, outsource the fuzzy picture to a click farm somewhere, those days are numbered. And At the end of the day, if you're paying for a service like a Bloomberg feed or what have you, I'm not trying to abuse them, no harm to Bloomberg, but if you're paying for some type of feed, I know getting it up to date sounds like a great idea. The user wants it, you reach out, you pull the most up to date, but caching in that type of context where you're paying for data for a user makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. Okay, the next one is API key leakage. I know everyone's probably thinking, oh shit, this again. But there's some really good stories here, and these are really, really important to protect. How many of you have seen, heard of API keys being leaked in code repos, right? Yeah. I was doing an assessment a while back on a big MDM solution, and for whatever reason, the MDM provider didn't want to give me a copy of their SDK. They're like, no, you have to be a customer to see our software development kit. Like, but I want to hit your API. I'm a tester. You know, we're going to responsibly disclose this stuff through your customer. Like, I'm a good guy. They're like, no, you need a license before we'll give you our SDK. So I'll find it. You know, so I did. It was on Git. Someone had the full listing on Git. I'm going through it, and it was a major retailer. Major retailer had this full copy of this big MDM's SDK. But not only that, they had their API key hard-coded into it on Git. And I'm like, no, this won't work. I shouldn't test if it works, but I should let them know if it is exposed, that they have it exposed, and I should probably test if it works. You know, kind of one of those things. I'll leave the ending up to your imagination. But yeah, so this is happening all the time. Willingly or unwillingly, people are putting API keys into their source code repos and then exposing those said repos out to the open internet. Someone did a honeypot study once and found like, hey, if I throw API keys out for S3 on GitHub, how fast are they compromised? And it was like 90 seconds, some ridiculous thing that they're just constantly scraping for different permutations of API keys. So don't do that. Other types of open source intelligence, I happen to work with a guy, his name is Tim Tones, technically my manager. He created this cool tool called ReconNG. Anyone heard of ReconNG? Tim created that. And yeah. Yay, Dave for Tim. So there's all kinds of crazy modules. I'm not here to pimp out his tool, but if you're looking for open source intelligence, ReconNG is awesome. Use it and see what kind of crazy data you can get back. Every once in a while, we'll have a client who wants to do like a truly black box assessment. Like, hey, get in, and if you get in, then maybe we'll give you credits, but get in first. And like Tim comes back to me with pages and pages and pages of credential dumps and source code repos and all kinds of stuff. And the assessment started 30 minutes ago, right? He's crazy, his tool's awesome. Reverse engineering, this really takes place with thick client apps, HTML5, client-side stuff, or mobile apps, right? If you have a mobile app, know someone is reversing that. Someone is looking at that. Actually, some folks in this room from SCI or CERT or whatnot are probably looking at that. So know that if you hard-code an API key, no matter how you try to obfuscate it, no matter what you do to try to spaghetti code that thing together at runtime, someone's going to figure that out. Someone's going to steal your API key, and if it's not hardened or you know, something that should be able to be seen by outsiders, it's going to be abused and stolen and all kinds of good stuff. Local file inclusion and directory traversal, right? Does anyone see here in the past few weeks, Krebs came out with an article about some big like password manager or something or other that was owned. Anyone see like the breakdown of what happened on that? Yeah? Yeah, so speculation is showing that basically someone got some S3 keys and then went in there, got that, and it filtered it. My money is on something like this being the cause of a leak of those. I don't have any type of insider knowledge, but at the end of the day, that was my money. My cohort, again, another colleague of mine, John Poland, he pointed out this Rails dynamic render. I don't know, I'm not a Rails guy. It's like, you know, but There's this crazy thing. If you Google Rails dynamic render, his CV is the first one that pops up. He's the dude who founded John Poland. It's ridiculously easy how you can get local file inclusion and pull files off of local file systems. And if you're going to store them in places on the server, they might be owned as well. There's another story on API keys. Anyone remember this $1 million Instagram bug that rang a tune? It was last year. Is there a date on this? No. The link's in here. I'm happy to give it out to anyone. It caused a lot of drama. There was like, this guy was saying this, and Alex Stamos from Facebook was saying this, and the truth is probably somewhere in between. But let me just break down what happened, and you can kind of see where things go. So, bug bounty folks, they do a lot of recon, they do a lot of searching out there for like scope creep, because all the low-hanging fruit and all the good stuff is done on like Facebook.com main. So you look, well, what else is out there that's owned by that same organization that I can scope creep and break into, and then maybe use that to pivot to something bigger. So that's exactly what this dude did. He found that Instagram had an external Sensu facing portal, and I guess the Sensu admin is some type of admin interface. And he tried a bunch of like credential stuffing, leaked passwords, couldn't get in, called it a day. Then he started doing some research and realized that there was this remote code execution vulnerability in Sensu that he then leveraged to then, I don't know, echo back threads or create an account for himself. You can read his blog if you want to get the exact details. But once he was in, he found this config.json file, which had an AWS key in the config file, which that's where Facebook was like, cool, we would have given you 10 grand for that. You should have stopped there. But he didn't. He then took this and ran over to the S3 autoscale bucket, which had additional keys in it. Then he kept going. He then took that and went over to this third bucket that had like all the user data in it. And this guy is being investigated now by like Facebook fraud and what user data did you take? And this is completely outside of our white hat program and what have you. But at the end of the day, it was this key that was exposed. It was in a file that was available via a web system that should have never been there. And let's be honest, this should have never been externally facing to begin with. Maybe IP filter if you don't have server-side request forgery bombs, but whatever. When we're talking about API key leakage or remediation, some of this is pretty simple, but like patch your shit, make sure if you have something exposed out to the wild, you're patching it, right? Especially if it's an admin portal or something like that. Don't expose unnecessarily, right? If you have admin portals, try not to make them externally facing. This is an interesting one. With S3 with EC2, these notion of ephemeral environments is big right now, right? You stand up a one-time environment to do a data transfer, or you stand up a one-time environment to do X, Y, Z. Bug bounty hunters are going crazy right now, figuring out ways to enumerate ephemeral environments, because even if they're only up for an hour or 3 hours, or they forget to be torn down because someone forgets about it, they're usually less hardened than the stuff that you know is out there in your DMZ or out in the cloud that you've tested and know exists. So ephemeral environments are really, really big right now. People are going crazy looking for different ways, and there's a bunch of interesting scripts out there that people and tools that people have written to try to enumerate ephemeral environments before they're torn down. And of course, they'll trust no one, right? Don't expose your API keys. Don't be silly. So wait, there's more. I'm just going to fly through these and sake of time and make sure I have time for questions here. We talked about admin portals. This sounds silly, but people have admin portals available to the outside everywhere. And if you do that, there's a very good chance that there might be a hard-coded cred that you forgot about or didn't know ever existed, right? Or maybe it's not integrated to the same LDAP or AD that your rest of your organization is, or maybe it's not being looked at for your IDS or whatnot. So admin portals are big. Beta sites like the Facebook thing, right? If you don't have the same security on your beta sites, but you're making them publicly accessible, that's ripe for a disaster. Deserialization is everywhere. I can talk about that for hours. Just be cognizant of that. Header leakage. Has anyone seen the amount of headers that are coming back from web servers lately? I mean, it's like this long of all the different X headers and base64 encoded this and whatnot. Be cognizant that if you are echoing back headers from your server, that's all going to your client. All they have to do is look at it, and they are looking at it. And password leaks and credential stuffing, obviously this is right, this is everywhere. One thing to note that I just wanted to say, are people familiar with password ratcheting? Anyone? So password ratcheting, I got one shaking head. Password ratcheting is basically, say you have some old weak hash of passwords, MD5, right? And you want to say, how can we convert all of our users to, say, script? Well, instead of making it so that on next login that user's credentials will be upgraded to script, you just ratchet the one into the next one. So for instance, if a user logs in and say they have an MD5 hash, what you would first do is check to see if that hash matches the first algorithm. And if it doesn't, then you use the first algorithm to feed into the second algorithm, and all of a sudden you've updated all of your passwords to a new memory card password system, and you're just ratcheting the one, feeding it into the other, right? So I'm running low on time, but if you want to talk about that, that's an easy step to basically take your old, outdated, either encrypted creds or your non-memory hard hashes and upgrade them to something like script. So this is still where we are. At the end of the day, the only thing that I can really say is I got a lot of stuff just by reading up on blogs, reading bug bounty reports. Bug bounty reports are awesome. One at a local company, Uber. Uber has a fantastic bug bounty. I think it's managed by HackerOne. But they have insane reports on some of the vulns that were found by their bug bounty curves. And if you read through them, you get these little tidbits. And you're like, oh man, if I would have just gone this extra step, or if Uber would not have done this in XYZ way, and not picking on Uber, but it's a really great tool out there that we can learn from. It's free, free as a beer. Go out there, look at these open disclosures, look at these bug bounties. They're definitely paid for themselves and what you pay for them. 2 minutes left. Any questions? No. Oh, yeah.
Do you follow a framework, or are you just so seasoned with it that you just know it?
As far as like an actual penetration test?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great question. The question was, do I follow any particular methodology framework, or do I just use my gut? I would be lying if I say I don't use my gut. I certainly do. But there's certainly methodologies, scripts that I run through, things that I do when I'm starting off an assessment to get a level of coverage that I'm happy with. At the end of the day, I want to spend my time on looking for business logic flaws. I want to spend my time looking for the most critical things that I can find for an organization when I'm doing an assessment. And those are not going to be the things that are found by methodology and coverage and kind of casting a wide blanket. I really have to narrow in. So I use some automation and I use some different tooling to get that coverage of methodology and framework. And then I start branching off when I feel comfortable enough as far as coverage. Any other questions, comments, ideas? Yeah.
You mentioned password ratcheting, and I just Google searched it quick. Is there a different way I would look for it?
Password ratcheting?
Yeah,
That's
it's literally what it's called.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And see me after I can send you. I can get you specific.
Yeah, it did pop up in Google. They want to send ratchet. Thanks. So.
Oh, yeah, it's password ratcheting. Yeah, I'll give you. Anyone else? Thank you all. Appreciate it.